One of the notions that has come up these days, for example, in the latest letter by Archbishop Vigano, which ends in a very surprising way, by the way, where I'm a bit startled and even wonder if he himself has written it. But it's not very important to look at that now. But one notion that comes up towards the end of that letter, and that has come up quite often in people discussing what is happening today in the world and in the church, this notion is katechôn in Greek. Katechon, which means something that hinders, something that keeps something else down. And it occurs, or it controls someone, to keep in check, to restrain from acting. Katechon. And it occurs in the second letter of St. Paul to the Christians of Thessalonica, where he describes, or actually prophesizes, St. Paul prophesizes, that towards the end the lawless human being, the lawless man, shall manifest himself as an end of the world, of the world history, and that Christ himself will come to blast him away, to conquer him. Of course, you can compare it with other predictions, like the prediction of the Antichrist in the first letter of John, the angel of light somewhere else in St. Paul. So there is something like a final manifestation of evil before the coming of Christ. And in this second letter of St. Paul to the Christians of Thessalonica, he speaks about it, and he writes to these Christians about how he has spoken about it. And he writes in a very particular way, because he says, listen, I've discussed this with you. And you know, because I've discussed this with you, what is keeping it down? What is the katechon? What power, if you like, restrains, is restraining, is controlling the evil powers, so that this man of lawlessness cannot appear. And then there is a kind of wish expressed, oh, may he be taken out from the middle. So between evil and Christ, or between evil and humanity, the world, there is something standing in between against these final manifestations of evil. And then he says, may thee be taken out, go away out of this middle, the one who is hindering it. So we step from something abstract, something hindering, to someone, a person hindering it. May he disappear from the middle, from in between mankind and the devil. So St. Paul doesn't say he wants it to stay there, but he wants it to go away. He wants, and he says it even in a personal way, he wants this person to go away, so that there's nothing in between mankind and the evil powers, so that they will have a limited time, and this lawlessness, this lawless humanity can be manifested, so that Christ will be forced to act and come. There's almost a desire of St. Paul that everything controlling evil will just stop controlling it, so that evil can have its way for a while and Christ will come back. Now there has been a lot of reflecting and thinking about what can be this katechon, either this thing or this person. And actually, I think it's not that difficult at all. Because over the last century, let's say the last 150 years, we've seen the gradual disappearance of metaphysics and natural law. And I think that those two are the things that has kept Satan at bay in such a way that he could tempt, he could do evil, he could bring wars, he could cause misery, but he could not manifest himself in a final, ultimate way before being beaten. Of course, it's Christ who controls everything Satan does. It's God. But natural law has a very special, let's say, a very special aspect of evil is controlled by natural law and by metaphysics. Metaphysics, that means the use of the human reason and intelligence to find absolute truths, to go beyond everything that is moving, changing, beyond everything that is relative. Our intelligence, with the help of reason, but in a certain way beyond reason, can touch truths and realities that cannot change, that are absolute, that are not relative, that cannot be changed, and that will never change. There is in us the capacity to see some lights that are timeless. They are like sparks of eternity in us. They also preserve in us, they secure, they warrant our free will. All that is treated in metaphysics. And from metaphysics, we see how our human nature, the way we move, the way we grow, the way we change in time, is still all finding its meaning in existence, in the reality that is around us and that is also invisible. Our natural law is not saying, that we have 5 toes on our feet and that we have 2 ears on our head. Natural law is in fact everything that we can reason about that we can by reason understand of our own human nature, starting from the fact that we are intelligent beings, that we have a mind, and that part of this mind is reasoning, concluding, can also discern principles that cannot be changed. That's why I immediately, when I say natural law, I also say metaphysics, because often people don't understand that the two are very closely linked. That's, if you like, our spiritual nature, a divine reflection of the Creator in us, of the Almighty in us. And it is especially that aspect that has disappeared, let's say, since the French Revolution, but let's say the last 150 years, it has disappeared from unfortunately, from a lot of thinking going on in the church and in our culture and civilization in a wider sense. Our philosophy, the last 2 centuries, has really gone berserk. And I think that, in fact, the disappearance of metaphysics linked to natural law, that's the disappearance of the katechôn. And so we see, in our times, we see indeed this final manifestation of evil, especially attacking human nature. Especially attacking our capacity to make free choices that last. In other words, attacking faithfulness. faithfulness which is like a reflection in our soul of eternity, growing towards a responsibility before God. That's why faithfulness is very, very beautiful, is very good, is very truthful. It's like the summit of our human nature is our capacity to be faithful and to be responsible to God and in charity towards each other. And that is attacked. So I think I don't know which person I would have to choose here to be taken away from between mankind and evil. But if you think about katechôn in an abstract way, the thing that is keeping down this final manifestation of evil, I think it is natural law and metaphysics. And they have been taken away progressively over the last 2 centuries. I don't see any other possible explanation for the katechôn that is taken away. And that means that we live in this time of the final manifestation of evil. Which means I think we are not far from the return of Christ. Now, the fact that I say we are close to the return of Christ doesn't mean I'm telling you to panic, sit under the table and wait until the heaven comes falling down. No, it is just a special urgency to become a saint, to find out what is the will of God, to stop enjoying a life without joy, without purpose, without meaning, partying without reason. Just stop. And I don't think this urgency is any stronger than it was for our ancestors who lived very shortly, who suffered a lot, who went through a lot of hardships and yet were joyful, who were faced with a lot of trouble and who were troubled without looking at internet or the news or at social media. I think the call for sanctity, for a direct friendship with God, is today as urgent as it has always been. Whether Christ comes back tomorrow, next week, next year, next century, we will see. We will see. But we can always ask Him, what do you want us to do? What do you want me to do to add to your glory in mankind? What decorations do you want me to add to the beauty of the bride? That is the Church.